Today we're going to talk about incorporation for mental health services or a psychologist. My name is Tony Cameron with TLDR Accounting, and we provide tax and accounting services to therapists in private practice. We get a lot of questions about when should I incorporate, or should I form an LLC, or should I form a pllc, and is there a certain point I should do this, or should I start out that way? Our general recommendation is you should normally start out, if you are going to be doing this the long term and it's not, say, like a year-long gig. We had a lot of folks who pivoted towards private practice for just some short-term time before they had, maybe they were going on to a research project or whatnot. But if you're going to be going into private practice as a long-term goal, or maybe you're starting a side hustle, private practice on the side of your current job, and long-term you plan on transitioning full-time to your private practice, I would recommend incorporating from the get-go. Now, depending on your state will depend on what that looks like. If you're in Washington, that means you're a pllc, right? You automatically should be filing for your pllc because that's what a mental health professional needs to file in this state, because it does depend on each state how you are required to incorporate. Some states don't have a pllc, and so you can just become an LLC. Other states like California are really strict on how you file, and there's only two options: a professional corporation or a sole proprietorship. Now, I'm not going to dig into California issues, but it's one thing to be aware of, that this is state-specific information, and I'm just covering it all generally. Now, what if you haven't started as a, PLLC, LLC, or PS? Well, I would recommend that you incorporate once you know for sure you are going to be doing this long term. So maybe you started out, you weren't sure if you were going to be able to get clients. You didn't know if it was for you. Maybe you were like, I'm not sure if I want to stick with agency work or private practice. And so you take on a few private practice clients just to see if you enjoy the work. And this is what you want to do for the next couple of years. Well, once that switch in your head flips, that this is actually serious and you're going to be doing this for a couple of years, you should make the change to incorporating, depending on what that means in your state. Now, if you do incorporate, even if you do it in the beginning, what that means is you should not be using a personal checking account. You have to have a business account for your business. It should be under the business name. Same with using the business name. You should be using your business name on your marketing materials or website. You shouldn't just be using your personal name. Now, some states you need to have your personal name, LLC or PLLC or PS, right? So it will depend on each state. But if you have a business name, you should be using it. But those are two big things that you do need to switch over, is you have to have a business bank account once you do incorporate, and you want to be using your business name. Now, a couple other triggers to making sure that you do make the switch. If you're at the point where it is serious and you're thinking of hiring employees, you should be making the switch, right? California, I will use this as an example. Say you stayed as a sole proprietorship because you didn't want to become a professional corporation, and now you're looking at bringing on a couple of employees. It's probably time to make the switch, but it will depend on your situation. Like I mentioned, when you get started is a good time to do it depending on your state. In Washington, we always recommend that if you're hitting the ground running, like you're just starting your private practice, automatically just go for the PLLC. It's a $200 filing fee, and then renewal each year is under $100. And so it's just worth it to do it from the get-go and then not have to reset everything up, right? Because if you start out as a sole proprietorship, you get a new EIN number. If you're registering with insurance companies, you're registering with insurance companies, setting up bank accounts. And once you incorporate, you got to do all those things again, because then you need to do it under your business name and your business ID numbers. Now, choosing between them, it's really state specific, right? Like I mentioned, Washington, you have to be a PLLC. In California, you can only be a PS or a sole proprietorship. In other states, you have to be, a PLLC. It's really state specific, and it's going to depend on your situation, right? So my number one recommendation is look up your rules to see what your state requires you to be, and that'll then help inform your decision on if you should be a sole proprietorship or incorporate for your private practice. Hopefully you found this helpful. I know it was a general summary of incorporation, but I did cover the main areas. The biggest is make sure that once you do incorporate, or even if you're a sole proprietorship, you should be using a separate bank account. And then making sure that you're keeping things separate from your business. And if you're triggering to hire an employee, you really need to look at incorporating beforehand, just so you don't have to switch everything over again. Hopefully you found this helpful. If so, subscribe below.